Thank you for joining as we talk about guardianship abuse today. I'm joined by an attorney who focuses on this area. This is Maria Galante. And Maria, thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so excited to learn about this. So I'm wondering if you can tell us just a little bit about your area of practice, please.
Yes, I am an elder law attorney in trust and estates. I focus in a lot of guardianship work. And as you say, like guardianship work is focused on those people that become incapacitated, whether it's a mental illness or a physical incapacity. And because of that, they're unable to care for themselves and unable to make decisions, or they're unable to make payments, bills, or things of that nature. So that's when a guardianship happens. I have experience. I'm practicing in New York, so I have experience with the New York process and every aspect, whether it's representing a family, petitioning the court for a guardian, also, or being appointed by the court to actually investigate the allegations made in a petition. So that's really my main practice.
Yeah. Perfect. So guardianship abuse is not new. It's not a new topic, but it's gotten some renewed energy due to this Netflix movie, I Care a Lot. Now, I don't want to get into spoilers, and some people haven't seen it or won't see it, but the gist of it is that this woman is a professional guardian, and she happens to be kind of a criminal mastermind as well. Not all guardians are bad. But she orchestrates a situation where a doctor goes and says that this victim is not able to care for herself. The judge says, okay, we're going to put her under the care of the state. And so they move her out of her house, put her in a care facility, put her on medications, sell everything, and maybe skim a few dollars. I think anybody watching that is horrified and wondering, can and does this really happen?
Right. So as everything else, these have some sort of plot convenience, and this is a show, and we have to be reminded that this is basically a way to make it be a topic of conversation and have people talking about the show. In reality, in my experience, a guardianship is a process that has several safeguards in place to avoid abuse. I'm not saying that there will be like a case here and there where the guardian abused its power when things were done that were incorrectly, but the way the process is created now, it has a heavy involvement on behalf of the court. So the court knows what's going on. There are, checkups. You have to file reports on an annual basis. You have to ask permission to the court to sell real property if the person owns property. You cannot just get into a contract without the court's approval. You cannot pay a professional's fees. Like if you hire someone like a coach or something for the person, you cannot just pay that. Depending on the amount of the profession, you have to go back to court and ask for the court to approve those expenditures. So there are a lot of things put in place to avoid that kind of abuse. I mean, especially when it comes to professional guardians, that appears to be the person in the show, at least here in New York, you have to sign up with the court, and the court has a list of professionals. You have to submit your background, your history. Most of the times, these professional guardians, at least in New York, they're attorneys. So imagine they're risking not only the reputation, but the license to practice law. So I think that in the many years I've been practicing for at least 8 to 10 years in this area, I never seen someone that is willing to lose the law license over a guardianship. I can see probably neglect, if you will, maybe, someone that gets a lot of appointments. And I think that was back in the day, like the courts will have the go-to attorneys that always take the appointments. And then what you actually hear is, I haven't heard from the person, like I've been calling for a month. I need to replace something in my house. The person has not sent a check to pay for these things. So it's more instances of neglect than actually abuse or financial abuse. Because, like the court in New York takes a lot of pains to protect. Here, the guardians have to be bonded. So you actually have to be able to provide this kind of guarantee that if the asset just comes with the assets, there's an insurance company that will replace those assets for the person. And the court takes this guardianship seriously because exactly, there's been abuse and neglect in the past. So, the courts are trying, judges are also trying to protect themselves, and the people that they appoint also, they want to make sure that nobody wants to be sued in the future, or no one wants to be in the front of the New York Times with this big case of abuse. So those are the things that I feel that the process is misconstrued and misrepresented in the media. But having said that, I mean, obviously you have the other side of the coin when you have guardians like our family members. So, we touch on the professional guardians, but we also can have regular people, lay person that is as a guardian. And usually those are the cases, excuse me, those are the cases where you see more problems or issues with the restrictions from the court. So for instance, you have a daughter that becomes mom's guardian, and now she wants to take her to Europe for a trip that mom always wanted. And now she's like, no, you cannot just do that. You have to get the court to approve it. So there's a lot of cases when you have private or personal or family members that become the guardians, that there are a lot of issues, and I will say a little like a pushback because they feel frustrated. I understand, like they feel frustrated that they have to go and ask and account for every penny, but that's the way it is. The process has been and continues to evolve to exactly avoid the cases like in the movie. I mean, I read an article that apparently there was a case, a woman in Florida that had like 140 guardianships. She was the guardian for 140 people. And I think that movie might be based on that case. But as I said, like if the courts, at least in New York, are to give you a guardianship, when there's money, you have to be bonded. I mean, the money is going to be protected.
Gotcha. So if anything, these are very rare cases. And in fact, it's almost the opposite, that there's so much oversight, so many different eyes on things that usually, I suppose anything's possible, but usually it gets caught.
Right.
So what if somebody was worried about this? They say, okay, Maria said it's probably not going to happen, but I'm a worrywart, right? If somebody was that type of person, what are some steps they can take to maybe protect their family members, or if they don't have family members or their family members aren't capable of handling these types of things, what are things people can do to protect themselves?
So there's one thing that we have to keep in mind, and is that each person is its own individual. So if we have mom who has always handled her things, but then she gets diagnosed with dementia, she already lost the capacity to make decisions on her behalf in a way, right? So what I tell everybody is that you should make sure that you have gone to an attorney and have a power of attorney and healthcare proxy at least in place. The healthcare proxy is the power to make medical decisions. So you appoint an agent, it's your decision who will make the decisions regarding doctors and procedures, and whether you want to receive medication, and whether you want to be resuscitated. All those decisions is at your power while you're well. So you want to do that. That's a simple document. Every state has one. So you can just have that and appoint someone that you trust. And if you change your mind, you can always appoint somebody else. And also the power of attorney. So these two documents are not like a will, right? Because when a will, it only matters after you die. Yeah. But the power of attorney and the healthcare proxy are in place in the event that you're unable to make decisions and you're incapacitated, or something happens to you and you're like out of it, God forbid, on a coma for 1 month or 2 months. So you have this, a power of attorney and a healthcare proxy in place. You have a power of attorney that handles all the financials. That person can go to the bank. They can, pay bills on your behalf, file your taxes if you are unable to do that. So those two advanced directives, that is what they're known, are like a way to protect yourself. But you need to have the right document in place, because if it's not, or something is not signed the way it should or notarized correctly, you're going to go to the bank and you're going to find out that these documents are not good. And then you're going to have to face a guardianship. And as I said, nobody but you can handle your financial affairs. I mean, if you're married or you have a joint account with someone, then it's different because you have a joint owner. But if you are not, or you're single, or you know, whatever your situation, if you have assets, you know, and you live by yourself, you need to make those decisions. Why? Because then if something happens to you, a court intervention is going to be required, because, you know, there's HIPAA regulations. Not anybody can just show up and say, give me his medical history, let me make decisions. They're not. You know, they got to go to whatever is the standard in every state. Same thing applies to the power of attorney. Not, you know, it's not automatic. Like, a lot of clients believe that if you get sick, your spouse automatically, the banks, the financial institutions are going to give everything to your spouse, and that's not true.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a single owner of an account, that's it. Only you can access, or your power of attorney. So I think that people can gather from this that they really just need to do some planning for themselves. It's not a will, it's just something that is in place in the event that something happens to you. You become incapacitated, you go in a coma, you're going to be out for a period of time that you cannot pay for your bills, or you know, take care of your assets, or make decisions regarding your medical care. So obviously you need to think of people that you trust, and that's important. Think of people that you trust, not any random person that seems to be nice to you on Monday. So maybe she would like to do that.
Let's say that somebody does end up in a guardianship that just isn't right. For whatever reason, the guardian is not fulfilling their duties, or there are concerns. Are there, you know, what are the ways to, I guess, unwind it, or get to the right situation?
So if you fear that someone that you know or your family member is in a situation that is untenable, where the guardianship is clearly not meeting that person's needs, when you perceive that there's been abuse, that someone is taking advantage of the appointment to make decisions that are not in the best interest of the person, or something that the person will be dramatically opposed if she could actually oppose it. So every state have different ways of attacking that. You can always go to court, you know, go back to court and ask and file a petition to terminate the guardianship. I mean, if the guardianship is no longer needed, the due process is there. I mean, you can do that. You can petition on behalf of the incapacitated person, but you have to prove the case. So, you know, mind you, that once the court has adjudicated someone to be incapacitated, you have to provide proof that that's no longer the reason. Same things I will say, like if you see that maybe the guardianship is necessary, but the guardian is the wrong fit, you can also make this application to the court. What happens is that anything that requires court intervention is expensive, right? Anything that is court intervention requires an attorney, because an attorney is the one who knows how to prepare a motion, to put the documents in place. So that's the difficulty. It takes time to undo something, because remember, you have the burden of proof to show that the guardianship is no longer necessary, or to show that the guardian is the wrong fit. Because sometimes we have a lot of kids fighting, a lot of abuse. So the court goes, okay, we're going to appoint a professional that knows what she's doing. And then everybody hate the professional, everybody hate the guardian. So there's motions to remove. And then the court says, listen, I don't know all of you. All of you have done nothing good for your mom. You know, you're all fighting. This woman, you hate her because she's doing what I asked her to do in my order, basically to pay the bills, not to give you a penny to any of you, you know, things like that. Mm-hmm. So each case is different, and you really have to look at what was the appointment based on the allegations, the directions of the court, and take it from there. But I want people to know that it can be done. It's just like it's going to take a while, and it takes time and money, really, to go back to court and do it. But there's always, you know, like I tell anybody that becomes a guardian, is this: if there's an issue, you can contact the court, you can send the letters to the people that are appointed. I've seen very creative family members that send letters to everybody that were in the initial appointments, and you get sometimes random letters that we haven't get paid, or we haven't received the monthly payment, or something happens, even though you haven't been in the case in 5 years, for instance. So those are the things that happen, but people can always contact the court. The problem is that, as I said, the burden of proving that you're right is high. You know, the court is going to take really like a look into everything and make sure that you're just not doing it because you're speculating, right? You really have to have proof that this is the situation. And just like personal like or dislike is not enough to get someone off the appointment.
Gotcha. So it's sounding like some takeaways here are to be proactive about setting things up, and that means getting those legal documents in place, the advanced directives, power of attorney, healthcare, as well as maybe arranging things so that you have the right guardian in place so that the court doesn't have to place a guardian for you. Is that sounding right?
Exactly. Like what we do, for instance, here in the power of attorneys that I prepare for clients, you can in the modification, things that you can add to the power of attorney. We actually have the language where it says in the event that the guardianship proves to be necessary, regardless of the appointments, regardless of the papers that I am signing, I want my father or my mother or my son to be my guardian. So you're already expressing whether if that situation comes. And that's something that you can use in a guardianship to show the court some guidance, right? Like if the person is unable to express her wishes, the person is unable to speak or whatever the situation, you can always point that to the judge and say, even though, let's say, power of attorney was not properly executed or there was a problem with it or it's not sufficient to protect the person right now, she already expressed her will, this is what you wanted. Mind you, though, I mean, again, you want to appoint someone that you trust, because remember, you're giving this person power, not only the power of attorney, but if eventually becomes a guardian, this person has to be responsible, has to file the reportings with the court. So you always want to make sure that you pick the right person to do this. And if things change, for instance, if you sign a power of attorney today, and you have a great relationship with your son or with your sister or whatever, and then the person changes or the person moves, immediately revoke that one and sign a new one.
Yeah.
If you have those documents in place, I can guarantee you that at least you can have some way through. If you get sick, if you get something like that, for instance, some other people, as you say, proactive, if they want to appoint someone in the bank accounts, and this is for elderly people that are alone, you can go to your financial companies, the brokerage companies, and you can appoint someone as your agent in those accounts.
Yeah.
So if something happens to you, you don't have to go to court because that person is already authorized to access the accounts, to access money. Obviously, again, it has to be someone that you trust. So I say, yes, the takeaway is always be proactive, do estate planning, don't be afraid. A lot of people, they don't like to think about estate planning because usually you sell the estate planning as you're doing a will, a power of attorney, and a healthcare proxy together. And people don't like to do wills. They're like a little suspicious about having to make those decisions. But I will say, don't be because the reality of a guardianship is, it's real. If you have assets, if you have medical decisions that have to be made, somebody's going to make those decisions whether you like it or not. So it's better for you to take control now while you're well and you do this. So people out there, for instance, that have parents that are getting old but they're still in full capacity, they should definitely visit an attorney, make an appointment, make sure that your parents have all these documents in place so you don't have to worry in 10 years from now when dad or mom are having issues with memory issues or dementia or something else, or they get sick and they cannot leave it, and then you're stuck with all the situation.
Yeah, good. Well, good. This has been really helpful, Maria. Any last things you would add on this?
No, I just want to say to anybody that's watching that is going to watch the film or that have seen the Free Britney movement, remember that we don't see the other side. Remember that you're not looking at the actual procedure, legal side of things. So don't just get carried away. That's really my advice. Don't be just afraid based on one movie, because in reality, there's other things in place that will protect you. The best thing that you can do is just get informed. It's too easy to go and just Google the guardianship proceeding in Florida or in California or in New York, and you will see tons and tons and tons of information that shows you that it's not so easy as it's just in the movie. And if abuse has happened in the past, now there are more mechanisms in place to protect that and to avoid that.
Yeah, that's good. That's reassuring. Well, good. Well, thanks again, Maria. We really appreciate your expertise. And how can people find you?
Well, you can always email me. My email is mfg, so M as Maria, F as in Frank, G as in George, at dhclegal.com.
Well, good. Thank you, Maria. That's super helpful. And yeah, I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. It was really fun.